right, so today what we're going to be doing, we're going to be ranking our top 36 running backs for the rest of the season. And this, like I said before, is going to give us a good idea as to how we can gauge trades and decide maybe who we want to keep on our roster, maybe guys we can throw in on trades and where we value them, and kind of get ahead of the curve here where players are going to lose or gain value. So, gentlemen, let's hop into the bottom tier here. We're going to start at running back 36. I'll list them all out, and then we're going to talk about these guys. So, at 36, we've got Jonathan Brooks, 35, Nick Chubb, 34, Rico Dowdle, 33, Tyrone Tracy, 32, Chuba Hubbard, 31, Bucky Irving, 30, Rashad White, 29, Ramondre Stevenson, and at 28, Tank Bigsby. So the first thing I notice here is tons of crowded backfields in this grouping here, whether it's Carolina, New York, Tampa, Jacksonville. It's crowded backfields all over the place. I hate for us to sit here and let's just speculate who's going to get injured and become the guy. So outside of injury, Dave, is there a backfield here that you think we're going to get some clarity on it without someone having to get hurt?
You know, I think we already saw a little bit of clarity with the New York Giants. I mean, Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary's return was the RB1, which like we always want that to happen, right? Like the dusty veteran gets injured, the sparked up rookie steps in and does well, and we say maybe he'll hold on to that role, and it never really happens, but it did, and maybe that was just lingering effects from the groin injury, and Devin Singletary wasn't 100%, but I think that Tyrone Tracy looked good enough in his opportunities that he deserves the touches that he's getting. But Rashad White, obviously it's a three-headed monster there. I just wrote about Tampa Bay yesterday in my 3 Up, 3 Down article saying all of these guys are trending down. But I think I was kind of shocked to see how low you were on Rashad White. It's definitely, all three backs are involved. We see Bucky Irving getting touches. We see Sean Tucker getting touches. But Rashad White still did have the edge in snaps, carries, targets, receptions, routes run. So I think that really the Sean Tucker breakout we saw was a big negative for Bucky Irving and a slight negative for Rashad White. But I still think Rashad White is kind of at that RB2, RB3 bubble. I don't think I'm ready to completely knock him way down the rankings yet.
You-
Agreed. I mean, he's definitely the third down back there. And like I said, it knocks Bucky Irving, but I've told everyone that Sean Tucker's probably the third guy that you want, and not to blow all of your fab, because there's a reason why he hasn't been able to get on the field. And it's all the little ticky-tack things that don't score fantasy points, like picking the right hole, picking up blitzes and little stuff.
So for me, it's that a lot of these other guys, I get it that Sean Tucker's gonna be the third guy, and there's a reason I don't have Sean Tucker in the top 36 here.
Mhm.
I don't even think I had him in the top 45. But the thing for me is that at least these other guys are splitting time with one other back, and they have a shot at being the guy. Whereas he's splitting time with two other backs, and I already didn't think that Rashad White was a very good running back to begin with. Now you've got an offense that is probably going to be exponentially worse without Chris Godwin there to move the chains. Now, that could very well lead to more catches for Rashad White. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to get into that Russian roulette guessing game of, is it Rashad White's week, right? Where he ends up being the guy that gets the most touches out there. So I still want to wait and see it. That's why I have a little more confidence in some of the other guys. I have Bucky Irving only one spot ahead of him at RB 35. So that's
Here's
why
the
I'm not
one
as
other
high.
the one other thing I'll say about this situation, and maybe I'm just totally braining it here, but
Yeah.
Chris Godwin took the majority of his slots or snaps out of the slot. Chris Godwin now out for the year. We know Rashad White is a very good pass catcher. That's where so much of his value comes, is in the passing game. So we might actually see some formations now where Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker's in the backfield, where Rashad White can get slot snaps, where he has proven to be successful in the past. So we're definitely way lower on Rashad White now than we were in the preseason, and we were already pretty low on Rashad White in the preseason. But if this is kind of where the market is reacting now, kind of looking at Rashad White as a low end RB3, I think maybe it's actually worth going out and trying to buy him right now, because I don't see where his value can get much lower than it currently is.
Jagger, out of this group, do you see a running back here that you think sort of rises to the top without an injury having to happen? Or are you kind of same thing as Dave, where you're seeing Tyrone Tracy as that guy already?
Well, one guy that's kind of in the quagmire is Ramondre Stevenson, and I think, especially what we see with this offense, I think with Drake May, I think we could definitely see him start to get that RB1 upside that we've seen before. Other than that, it's Tyrone Tracy for me, and that's a simple fact that he's the clear best guy on his team, and they need a lot of help. And I don't think they're gonna uh, let Daniel Jones loose to throw 30 balls a game. So at least he should get some volume. And he's a guy that only needs one touch to get those chunk plays. He's like a larger poor man's Devon Achan when you think about it.
It's I would normally say Tyrone Tracy as well, because I do think that, I mean, he's a really talented player. I'm so interested in seeing what happens here with Nick Chubb. I think if you drafted him,
Mhm.
held on to him, or if you were able to pick him up, because he got more run than I thought. It didn't look great, right? But he got more run than I thought he would in his very first game back. And it's going to be a little bit of a process. But I am sitting here thinking that in 2 to 3 weeks, we're sitting here saying, damn, Nick Chubb was the perfect down the stretch fantasy running back to get here, because this is a team that's probably going to have to rely a lot more on the running game. There's no Jerome Ford right now, and Deontay Foreman's not been great either. So Nick Chubb, I mean, the injuries are kind of already there for the other people, but Nick Chubb could be the guy that I think makes that jump. I've got a running back 29 right now. I would not be surprised if in a few weeks we're talking about him as a top 24 running back.
Yeah, easily. And I was going to mention him if you didn't, just because he doesn't need an injury. Like he's recovering from the injury right now. And if he just continues to look better, we can absolutely see him. I mean, he's already carved out a role. And right now, Jerome Ford is banged up. Pierre Strong is banged up. Deonta Foreman has an overlapping skill set. I think they kind of use Deonta Foreman as like, hey, this is going to get us through the Chubb injury. But crazier things have happened, man. And, right now with the loss of Deshaun Watson, this Browns team could be playing with a little bit of extra fire in these coming weeks. We know Jameis Winston, with the way that he's going to chuck the ball downfield, it could just lighten up those boxes and make it even easier for Nick Chubb to find some room to run. So I have him at running back 35, but it's all so tight in this kind of mix here. I mean, he could easily be 10 spots higher than I have him in my rankings. He was one of the hardest guys for me to rank.
Yeah, I think the way I'm trying to look at it here is, what's the trajectory on the player? Which way is the arrow pointing? And I think for Rashad White, like the Chris Godwin thing, sort of just let the arrow go back to neutral instead of trending downward. But with Nick Chubb, there's only one way to go, at least for him. Like, you go from not having any value to being a guy that's getting the lion's share of the touches over there in Cleveland. Guys, let's go to the next tier here, where we got some pretty interesting names. At running back 27, Chase Brown; 26, Christian McCaffrey; 25, Travis Etienne; 24, Javonte Williams; 23, Najee Harris; 22, J.K. Dobbins; and at 21, Jordan Mason. So we've got I want to talk about the Niners running back situation, but I'll do that in just a second, because the guy at the bottom of this tier, Chase Brown, he's at running back 27. I see Chase Brown as a top 24 running back rest of season. And that's how I have him ranked here. Dave, you're not far behind at running back 26. Jagger, you're at running back 32. You're not quite there yet on Chase Brown. What's holding you back on that? Is that just that he's not very good? Is it that Zach Moss is going to be around? Is it the Bengals offense? What is it for you that's keeping you back on Chase Brown?
I think he's closer to the next tier when you think of ugly backfields than he is with the guys that he's a part of right now. If you think about Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, even Jordan Mason at this point, these are potential alphas in their backfield, with the exception of maybe Travis Etienne. And I just don't see Chase Brown. And moreover, I don't really think the Bengals really commit to the run game, and they're constantly trying to play catch up or keep ahead with that offense. And they have the wide receivers, and now with the tight ends with Eric All and Mike Gesicki, where they don't really need to be checking down to running backs. So I don't really want any of the running backs on that team. And it was more like, when I was making this list, I kept putting guys ahead of him, and not so much I was putting Chase Brown down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. For me, like, the thing that stands out is Chase Brown's explosive play ability, and the fact that he has just been so much better than Zach Moss, and that the shift has already started to happen. It goes back to that trajectory thing for me. And this Bengals offense is getting much, much better. Chase Brown has a role in that receiving game. He's not necessarily getting any touches near the goal line, which I can see how that might hold me back from
He's
pushing
gotten
him
a little bit,
a little bit,
little tiny.
a
Every
little
once
bit,
in a while, he gets a goal line touch.
a little bit, every once in a while. But I mean, seeing the volume go up in terms of the backfield touches, I think this was one of his worst. Yeah, this was looking at it right now. This was his worst week in rushing efficiency going up against the Cleveland Browns defense, but it's also a pretty good run defense. But for him to be getting 15 carries and get 17 opportunities total there, I like what I'm seeing there with Chase Brown in terms of the opportunity department and that this offense is getting better.
Yeah,
Dave,
and I
what
mean
about
we've seen it just weeks 1 through 5. Zach Moss had more snaps than Chase Brown, in weeks 6 and 7. Chase Brown had more snaps than Zach Moss. So I think we've already seen the tides turn and Chase Brown kind of take over as the RB1. He's averaging 60% of the snaps. I don't think he's really going to pull away with much more than that. But with how efficient he is, if it is a 60-40 split, 60% going in favor of Chase Brown, that's enough right there that you can get solid RB2 production.
So you guys would take Chase Brown over like Najee Harris at this point? What we've seen from the Steelers offense and the fact that they're really flowing through the run. Jalen Warren isn't as big of a threat as we thought at this point. To me, I'd rather have Najee Harris because I know he's going to get the goal on touches. I know that the Steelers at least have a competent offense at this point. I mean, they put up 37 points, so that's something I want. And then J.K. Dobbins, that's someone you both have liked at this point. I know that it hasn't been there, but at least the volume's there. And you want to talk about explosive plays, it's there for J.K. Dobbins behind an offensive line. They just arguably just don't have a passing offense, and that could work in his favor. Again, to me, it's just I just like other guys, and I know what they're going to do, and
I'm with
really
you on
feel
both
like I can
those ones.
project that.
I've
Yeah.
got Najee and Dobbins both ahead of Chase
yeah.
Brown. I'm with you on both of those.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was going to say Dave agrees with you. I'm the only one that I have. I have J.K. Dobbins ahead of Chase Brown. The only one I have lower is Najee Harris. And the reason Jalen Warren hasn't been as effective is that he's been injured and coming back from the injury. And I want to see more than one Russ game against a very weird Jets team before I say that this is
Fair.
a competent offense. Najee Harris himself has just not been very good. Sure, he's been getting the volume and the touchdown opportunity. I still don't know that this offense is that great. And I still want to see what happens with Jalen Warren because his role might grow as he continues to get healthier and healthier. But I mean, Najee's
Fair.
fine. I think they're all kind of in that same. I mean, there's a reason they're in the same tier, right? Like they're all kind of
Yeah.
in that same low end RB2, high end RB3. I think if there's the guy that like I would, if I'm going safe, I'm going Najee. If I'm going for the upside, it's Chase Brown just because of the explosive playability, and I think it's a better offense too.
To steal a page from your book, you're talking about arrows pointing up, arrows pointing down. I think the arrow is pointing up for Najee right now. We saw him losing out on all the goal line work to Justin Fields through the first 6 weeks. And now with Russ Wilson
Mm.
there, we see him getting those opportunities again. He's averaging nearly 20 opportunities per game if you look at his carries and targets. So the workload has been there. And I understand Jalen Warren is going to carve out a bit of a role, but Najee is running pretty well these last few weeks. I think we have this idea that he's just kind of a plotter who can't really do too much, but he's looking re-energized this season. He's had a few nice runs that he's put on tape over the last few weeks. He's another guy right now that I think if the market is kind of pushing him down because of Jalen Warren coming back, it might be tough coming off of the big game, but I'm certainly trying to buy Najee Harris if I can, because I think he's going to maintain what he's seeing right now, which is between 18 and 20 opportunities per game.
See, you guys are too trusting. I can't sit here and trust not only that Najee is going to be good, but that Arthur Smith is going to give a running back a workhorse role or that Russell Wilson is going to run an offense competently for a full year. I'm not there. They might, right? And like, go Steelers. That'd be great. Cool. Wave your terrible towels. I just can't trust them yet. Like, I really can't. And speaking of running backs that we can't quite trust right now, I think this is the biggest name in this tier and the one that we have to talk about the most. Christian McCaffrey is our
Mm.
biggest difference in rankings here, where I've got McCaffrey at running back 16. Dave, you're at 30. Jagger, you're at 33. Now, all the reports suggest that he is expected to return in week 10. So my question is this, is that if we are expecting to get 8 weeks of Christian McCaffrey, why is he not ranked higher for you guys? Is it the fear that maybe he doesn't come back by week 10 or that he's not completely healthy or Jordan Mason continues to keep his role? Because I think with Brandon Ayuk being out, Christian McCaffrey's role is all but certain that he's looking at 8 to 9 to 10 targets a game and goes right back into that crazy workhorse role. Because if not, the Niners season is done here. Dave, you're kind of actually, let's start with Jagger because you're lowest on him right now. So let's start there and then we'll go to maybe It's kind of middle ground with Dave.
You want to talk about trust issues? How can you trust Kyle Shanahan in this economy right now? Like that's honestly what
When
it
it
is
comes to
for
Christian
me.
McCaffrey, it's for me that's different. Like when McCaffrey's healthy, he is the guy with
But
everything.
when is he gonna be healthy? He went from, oh, he'll be back next game to like, it's gonna be week to week. We're gonna put him in IR. Then he's going to Germany, and then we realize that both his Achilles are shot, and he hasn't played football in so long. So what quality of a player are we gonna get back? I just have so many questions and with trust. And then I would say you're right about Christian McCaffrey and targets. And I'm not saying he's not going to get in. He's definitely going to get a lot more than Jordan Mason. But I don't think the 49ers have had the depth at wide receiver ever at this point, where they have Ricky Pearsall. They don't even need Ricky Pearsall to take that next step if Jawan Jennings is healthy, because he's been a competent replacement. So that's where I'm at. I honestly need to see him on the field before I feel comfortable ranking him,
Like you
because
just
I
need
have
to believe
zero
that he
faith.
exists. Like
Yes.
you need confirmation. You need proof of life that Christian McCaffrey's still a person.
You remember when Kate Middleton went missing? This is what I feel like.
Oh
Christian
no,
McCaffrey. And I was like, send me a picture with a thumbs up with today's date.
Dave, where are
I'm
you at?
definitely, yeah, I'm definitely siding with Jagger a little bit. Where I'm concerned here that one, I mean, I don't know if there's like a black and white report that says he's going to be back in week 10. What we're seeing is that Kyle Shanahan saying he has a better chance to return after the bye. I mean, it's still like it's concerning. Like they haven't even opened his practice window yet. The risk for re-injury is very high with tendonitis. If you come back a week too early, it shuts you down for another 2 months. So I think they're going to take this as cautiously as possible. They've also gotten pretty good play from Jordan Mason, meaning they don't need to kind of rush him back. Of course, there's injuries now that might push him back. And I think it's just a double-edged sword, because either you have to exercise patience, which means we're not getting McCaffrey for a while, or you rush him back and he gets re-injured. So I'm, in my rest of season rankings, I'm a little bit lower on McCaffrey than most, and I'm a little bit higher on Jordan Mason than most. It's just concerning when you see a guy who hasn't been able to play football at all because of health concerns, and we expect him to come back and just immediately be the player he's been in years past. I'm just a little pessimistic about that outcome.
All right, I'll move him down. Just because I don't trust the news either.
Yeah, and again, dude, it's really not even trusting the news and not trusting the news. It's not trusting Kyle Shanahan.
Well, it's
Like he is
Yeah.
just this is the
Drake
same
could
guy
write a
who told
song
us.
about Kyle Shanahan at this point. You want to talk about trust issues?
Yeah, we're trying to give good actionable advice, and Kyle Shanahan is not. He is not like us.
okay. So nice,
Thank you for that.
nice. So let's say we do get the confirmation Christian McCaffrey is back after the bye week 10. Where does he rank for you then? Because that's how I ranked him here, is that he is for sure back week 10.
RB3.
RB30.
This is literally just we need the confirmation that he exists.
All right,
He's
so
healthy. He's playing football.
so if we know, like if a report comes out today that says like practice window's open, he's 100%, we're gonna let him rest this week, we're gonna let him take week 9 off for the bye, and he'll be back week 10. Realistically, I'd put him inside my top 10, but I'm just pessimistic that that's how we see this transpire. I think that there's just such a high risk for re-injury. There's the chance that Jordan Mason, carves out a decent role in the regular season, and that they try to put McCaffrey on some sort of ice until the playoffs. It's just there's a lot of risk here. I'm concerned that we don't see the Christian McCaffrey of old at all this season.
So let me do this, because what I want to do is kind of figure what is a trade value for Christian McCaffrey. So these are a couple of trades that have happened over on Yahoo, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Chris Olave for Christian McCaffrey. Chris Olave, who's currently hurt, or Christian McCaffrey.
Isn't it concussion?
Sure, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's still
I'd take Olave.
it's
I'd take
missing.
Olave.
It's missing a couple weeks.
I'd take Olave over McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's still just basically you believe Olave's back in a week or two, but not McCaffrey. Like we're just not there yet.
Yeah, I mean,
I can believe a
concussion,
concussion
yeah.
he's going to come back. I don't believe that his Achilles all of a sudden, got dipped in the fountain of youth.
Well, okay. I mean, like there's just so much we don't know here. It's not like necessarily like it's a torn Achilles, and this was I guess the uncertainty is just too weird here to even like think of a trade value because I mean, there are people who are looking to make that run for the championship. It's not necessarily like a crazy, like he got dipped in the fountain of youth. He's been out rehabbing for X amount of weeks, right?
I think
So
I think anybody who's held McCaffrey this long isn't looking to sell now that we're, potentially getting close. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it would be kind of odd for somebody to draft
so that's it.
McCaffrey,
Like
stash him
there's
for
nothing
8 weeks.
actionable. There's
Yeah.
nothing actionable to do with McCaffrey. Just like you've got him. Sorry, you're screwed. That's it. And the other people, like
Holding
you're not getting him at this point.
holding is an actionable move. I mean,
Yeah.
this come from a dynasty guy. Like you got buy,
Well, I'm just
sells, and
saying
hold.
the people who have them, right? Like you're probably just holding, but I'm talking about like the people who don't. Like if you're looking to make that run.
If you're desperate, yeah, go try to. But Caffrey's a good player to make a bet on. But I'm just
I'm
saying
still
if
high on
you
DeAndre Hopkins. Like, yeah, if you can flip DeAndre Hopkins for McCaffrey, like if you could flip a wide receiver 3, sure, I'll take the risk. But
yeah.
every week that somebody has held him, his value has gone up. As soon as he was placed on IR, value bottomed out, and week by week, his value is going up. So I don't know if people are in the market of trying to sell low at this point. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive here, but I'd be excited if you're watching on YouTube right now and you've seen a trade for Christian McCaffrey go down within the last week or so. I would be fascinated to see what those trades are like. So please let us know in the YouTube comments.
TJ Hawkinson or Christian McCaffrey?
Hawk. In this economy with tight ends, Hawk. Yeah.
All right. So we just no Christian McCaffrey ever. All right. Let's go down to the next tier here. Starting at running back 20, James Conner at 19. Oh man, the numbers got all messed up here. But here we go. 19, DeAndre Swift. At 18, Tony Pollard. 17, Kareem Hunt. And at 16, James Cook. So guys, we have a little bit of disparity here in the Kareem Hunt rankings. Dave, you're highest at 15. Jagger, you're lowest at 21. I'm right in the middle at running back 18. I did a little soul searching this morning. And so much of this is that Kareem Hunt is getting insane value right now. And there's a weird video going around of Isaiah Pacheco on a treadmill. And I keep seeing people saying that, oh, Isaiah Pacheco's running on a treadmill
No, he wasn't running. He was
when he
walking.
is in fact not running.
Yeah.
Like
He's
he
like
is
a
walking
gentle.
gingerly.
Yeah.
Like if he was whatever the speed was in the treadmill, it was at like a 2 on the normal treadmill that you'd be on. This does not seem like Isaiah Pacheco is anywhere close to being back. So where are we at with Kareem Hunt, Dave? I know that you're really, I mean, you're all in. I'm surprised like that you and I aren't even a little bit higher. Jagger, you're lowest. You're at running back 21. Is that an Isaiah Pacheco thing? Is that a Chiefs thing? Is that a Kareem Hunt thing? Or what is it for you?
It's a bit of a Chiefs thing. That offense just isn't great right now. And it's hard to even say that since they've been winning games, but I feel like they've been winning games more because of Spags and Mahomes and a lot less because they've just been scoring a lot of points. I think Kareem Hunt is fine. I just like other guys better. I'm big on having certainty in a great offense, and the Chiefs are not a great offense right now.
Dave, what about you?
Yeah, I mean they aren't a great offense, but the opportunity is there. I mean he saw 4 goal line touches last week alone, which is unheard of. Averaging over 20 carries per game since he's joined the team, and I'm with you. I'm like same thing. The same conversation we just had about Christian McCaffrey. I will rehash about Isaiah Pacheco. I don't think that he's just going to return in 2 weeks and be the player he was before the injury. Like this guy broke his leg. They said it like impacted his ankle, and now like I had the same thoughts as you did, Alfredo. And I'm not a doctor, but like when I see a guy gingerly walking on a treadmill, that doesn't make me think like, oh, this guy's ready to play NFL running back in 2 weeks. Like I am so confused that was like the resounding response to that video was that like the return is imminent and that the return is going to be soon because what I saw him walking on a treadmill makes me think that he is still far away from getting ready to suit up. I think if we knew, like, if news came out today that there was some sort of complication with his recovery and Isaiah Pacheco wasn't returning this year, I think I'd be willing to put Kareem Hunt as high as like RB8 for the rest of the season. The only reason I'm a little bit lower on him is because the worst case scenario here is that Isaiah Pacheco does return, takes his workload back, and Kareem Hunt helped you get into the playoffs and then is worthless in weeks 14, 15, 16, and 17 when you need him most. So that's why I'm a little bit lower on him. But man, like right now, I see a lot of people saying sell high on Kareem Hunt because Isaiah Pacheco's returning. I don't know why you'd want to sell a guy that you're getting, top 5, top 10 production from for the next maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe the next 2 months. Like we don't know for sure, but I'm not in the market of trying to sell Kareem Hunt because he is just going to continue getting a ton of workload on this Chiefs offense.
You've
Eh,
convinced me. I'm wrong.
I mean, also, I want to say like Kareem
I
Hunt looks
like
good too. Kareem Hunt looks good,
I like
and I
the show.
think that's the biggest surprise. Like I was very much so in the Kareem Hunt is dust corner last year. Like he did not look good in Cleveland at all. This year, he looks like his old self. He's still got the power. He doesn't have the long speed that he used to, but just his vision, his footwork, his patience. It's a really, really good fit for this Chiefs offense.
It's been a very understanding show today. We're all willing to, change our priors here.
Let's talk about DeAndre Swift. We can never agree on DeAndre Swift.
No, 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 no.
Oh, I thought I was gonna get
No,
by an episode without having to defend DeAndre Swift.
no.
Jagger, tell us why you're highest on DeAndre Swift because I know you're not budging off of that one.
It's the same thing as always. Like he's back, guys. Like the Chicago,
He's
you're a
back
Bears
for
fan.
4 weeks.
You're a Bears fan. He's back, guys. Like I
No.
think the whole offense was bad. Now the whole offense is much better and there's opportunity. And a lot of people thought Khalil Herbert was going to be just this stud, and those allegations are false. I do think Roshan Johnson is going to be a problem, but to me, I think DeAndre Swift is fine. He catches passes, especially in PPR. He's someone I'm wanting on my roster. So.
All right, Jagger, thanks for joining the show, bud. We'll see you next time.
No, I am
You're
much
out here saying bad things about Khalil Herbert while propping up DeAndre Swift. I hate you
I
so
am
much.
much higher on DeAndre Swift in this show than I was in the show we did about a month ago because
Yes.
we did see some good games from him, and I think Jagger's right. Like the whole offense is good. Um,
But
I
he's
don't know.
been
I
on
mean,
good offenses before. Like, this is what he does. He gives us like 4 or 5 weeks. We're like, damn, that DeAndre Swift, that looks good over there, doesn't it? And then all of a sudden we buy in and it's like, running back 30 again.
I think
Foiled.
if I could swap my DeAndre Swift for like Tony Pollard, Kareem Hunt, I think I'm probably trying to do that, cash it in off of 2 big games. But Jagger could be right. Like the Bears offenses look good, and now coming out of the bye week, they could look even better. Caleb Williams was just showing consistent production week in and week out, and it was rising it was causing every player around him to look better too. So this could be the year for DeAndre Swift. Fourth coaching staff, third team, they might have finally unlocked him.
Jagger May's in a toxic relationship with DeAndre Swift.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Does it work for those people? No. It doesn't work for us.
You guys just don't start him when he has his good weeks. You don't see the side I see.
That's fair. That is fair.
You don't know him like I do. Dave, so you've got Jordan Mason ahead of DeAndre Swift. Who would you rather have rest of season here? Is it exactly how it is in the rankings? Jordan Mason over DeAndre Swift?
What type of analyst would I be if I didn't abide by my rankings? I have Jordan Mason ahead of DeAndre Swift. I'd prefer.
I mean, Jagger and I
Jordan
have both
Mason ahead
changed
of.
our rankings mid-show. So
Fair enough. No, but I'd prefer Jordan Mason over DeAndre Swift. Like even if you're losing out on a few weeks towards the end of the season from Jordan Mason, I mean he's been giving us like top 5 production every time he steps on the field. And if there's again like an opportunity to buy low coming off the bad game where he was clearly injured and impacted by that injury against one of the best defenses in the league, I'm trying to go out and buy low on Jordan Mason if I can after last week.
any more DeAndre Swift stuff that we want to say here, guys? Or is it safe to, can we be marked safe and move on?
We can be marked
Move
safe
on.
to move. I mean, I'm not safe. Y'all are.
All right, let's go to tier number 3 here. At running back 15, Aaron Jones. 14, Alvin Kamara. 13, Brian Robinson Jr. 12, Josh Jacobs. 11, Jonathan Taylor. 10, Devon Achane. And 9, David Montgomery. And
I'm having deja vu. I am having deja vu all over again. This is
yeah,
remember
Dave,
last year, the three of us doing a show together where Jagger and I were way in on David Montgomery and you weren't, and it's Groundhog's Day again.
yeah. You ended up being right. I'm just gonna say that.
I think we were.
No, you guys had David Montgomery as a top 5 running back rest of the season. He did not finish anywhere close to there.
Okay, maybe top 10.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the reason I've got David Montgomery right now as running back 13, he's had a touchdown in every single game and he's still running back 12. Like if that pace does not keep up, I think it's very reasonable just to say running back 13 for David Montgomery. To
Alfredo, I
put
just have to
Yeah,
sorry to be the fact check police. David Montgomery was the per game RB5 last year. Just let the record show.
but it's not per game. We're not doing per game rankings. We're doing rest of
Well,
season.
he got hurt, and I'm saying last year on a per game basis, he was the RB5. So just want the record to show.
I thought there was going to be no fact check.
Okay. I'm double checking this. You guys go and say things about David Montgomery.
David
I mean,
Montgomery's a
it's just
dog. Like,
yeah.
I'm not saying he's bad. Like I have my running back 13. You're at running back 9. You do this all the
awesome.
time where I'm like 4 spots different than you, and you're like, oh, you hate him.
He's an awesome running back on an awesome team behind an awesome offensive line. Yeah,
You're
David Montgomery, man.
saying things that a 14-year-old could say. He's awesome. He's got a really awesome team. They got
Sometimes
awesome
we don't have to
jerseys.
make it too hard. We don't have to talk about, the
Isn't there
advanced
something
metrics.
pure
Then why
about
are
the
we
mind of a
debating
child?
this? Like, why are we debating it? I have been running back 13. You act like I
Well, just
slapped his
move him up
mother. Like,
to
that's not what we're doing.
yeah, I just David Montgomery, man, and I was a big Montgomery hater, but running backs are so much a product of their environment, and when we saw him
Mhm.
for years on a bad Bears team, I didn't think he was that good,
Also, what are you talking about? David Montgomery was the running back 12 last year in points per game. Get out of here, David.
No, I mean, I just
In
look it up.
PPR,
Let
he was
Oh, in
running back
PPR, all right.
12.
I was looking in
uh,
standard. I was looking in standard.
Oh, in
how you gonna do us
standard?
like that?
Yeah.
How you gonna
So
do
I'm
us like that,
screaming into the
Dave?
mic now. You got me here now. At half PPR, he was running back 8. Go fact check yourself. Standard. What is it, 1997? All right, let's talk about someone else here in the running back tiers. Got me just heated.
Brian Robinson Jr.
Brian
Why do you
Robinson,
hate
go.
him, Alfredo?
Yeah,
So
why
does Dave. So does Dave. We're both at running back 14. So you talk to us about why you have a crush on Brian Robinson, Jag.
I like good running backs and good offenses. Jaden Daniels has
Cool jersey.
yeah, Jaden Daniels. You want to talk about a rising tide lifting all boats? That's what's been happening here. And everyone was worried about Austin Eckler. Like, well, Austin Eckler's going to come in and be the guy. Austin Eckler straight up said he didn't want to be the guy in the Chargers. He expected him to come in Cleveland come into Washington after a wash season and be the Eckler of old. I mean, he's catching passes now. He has the goal line opportunities. If anything, like I said, I mean, he should be ahead of David Montgomery a little bit. No, I'm way too high on David Montgomery, but he should be in the conversation for the simple fact that he has the David Montgomery role with no Jameer Gibbs.
He does have a Jameer Gibbs. It's just a 30-year-old Austin Eckler. It's not
Yeah, I was
Jameer
gonna
Gibbs.
say it's not
His
real.
quarterback.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think the only concern that I might have about Brian Robinson is that we get a few weeks of Marcus Mariota, which is going to grossly impact the environment that he's playing in. I think if Jaden Daniels wasn't dealing with this injury and wasn't potentially missing some time, I'd be a couple spots higher on Brian Robinson. I mean, all of these guys are so close in this tier. All of these guys are, and even our rankings are very, very close. We don't have a ton of huge disparities here, but when you're really splitting
Well, that's
hairs
fine.
and ranking these guys out, I mean, that's really all it comes down to is Brian Robinson knowing that he might have to play a game or 4 games without Jaden Daniels. That makes me knock him down a little tiny smidge because of how tight all these guys are.
These guys that make me nervous right now are the ones that aren't getting very big workloads, and then everything is being buoyed by touchdowns right now. And that's like Brian Robinson is very much in a similar boat to David Montgomery, where he's got what 3, 4, 5 touchdowns in the last 4 games. It's going to be kind of hard for him to maintain that. I don't hate him, Jagger, before you get all snippy with me. Like we've got him at running back 14. Like I still think Brian Robinson's really good offense. If he was getting more volume, I'd be a lot more comfortable with him. If he was doing anything in the passing game, which he's got 0 targets over the last 2 weeks, yeah, I'd be a little bit more comfortable. Like there's small things there that lead me to be a little less comfortable with him. All right. The other guy on here, Jonathan Taylor. I think this is probably going to fit into the Christian McCaffrey bucket, maybe not quite as severe, but I've got Jonathan Taylor as the running back 9, Dave Yart running back 11, Jagger running back 14. So, I mean, I think once again, this is one of these things we kind of have to wait and see, like just slow down or hurry up and wait type thing with Jonathan Taylor. We don't quite know when he's going to be back. they didn't put him on IR, and Jonathan Taylor himself said that he doesn't expect to ever or to have been on IR and that he'd be back
Just came out. He's
soon.
back. He's back at practice today too. Wednesday
Yeah.
morning, we just saw that Jonathan Taylor's back at practice today.
Yeah, so like he's been there. We don't necessarily know he's going to play. Like the Colts did a weird thing where they didn't rule out Jonathan Taylor until Sunday morning. He
Yep.
wasn't going to play. So even though like he didn't practice. So Jonathan Taylor, let's say he's back this week. Is he immediately back into the top 6 or 7 territory for you?
My only fear with Jonathan Taylor is just again the offensive environment. Like Anthony Richardson is developmental. We know that. I think there were really high hopes for Anthony Richardson this year, but he hasn't taken that step forward. I'm not panicking long term on Anthony Richardson. This is a guy who only had 13 starts in college and started 4 games last year and has only started a handful of games this year. Like his story is far from over. But at this point right now, like in the present day that we're discussing, he's not a good quarterback. And that's my fear is I don't know how much they're going to be able to move up and down the field. I don't know how many scoring opportunities there's going to be for Jonathan Taylor. Of course, a healthy Jonathan Taylor could make this offense a little bit better and open things up for Anthony Richardson like we saw in week one. We know he's a good player, but just with the concerns about Anthony Richardson, knowing that Anthony Richardson is going to vulture a handful of touches from him near the goal line, that's why I'm a little bit lower on him at RB9. But he's a guy that could easily outpace that ranking.
Yeah, that's it to me. He's a good running back in a bad offense right now. Like I know I say like good running backs and bad offenses. He's a good running back, but if the offense improves, that just means that Anthony Richardson is in a better opportunity to vulture some touchdowns.
Mhm.
I I'm looking at his games, Jonathan Taylor's games with Anthony Richardson, and 4 games this season with Anthony Richardson, 4 touchdowns, and we're looking at a guy who's had 72 rushing attempts across 4 games. Like the volume is there, the yardage is there. He's got two out of the 4 games over 100 yards, 3 of them over 80 yards. There, and he's actually getting work in the receiving game too. So like there's something where I don't even know if the bad offensive environment matters for Jonathan Taylor. If Anthony Richardson is struggling, that tells me that the Colts are probably going to lean on Jonathan Taylor even a little bit
Yeah.
more. I mean, we can travel down whichever narrative street we want to here, right? But
Hey, listen,
at
man. I just
least,
want to say I am Switzerland in this one.
yeah.
You're the one that's high on Taylor. Jagger's low on him, and I'm smack dab in the middle. I don't really have a dog in this fight.
I just, we're getting to that time of the year where I think I'd rather take the chances on guys like this that can be the total like smash league winners. And if I'm looking at even just the smallest last little bit of trade window for Jonathan Taylor, I think I want to take that one. Where are you guys at?
No, that makes sense. And actually, you giving me the splits, and that's something I haven't looked at with Anthony Richardson, is way more encouraging because it's like you said. Well, we have a rushing quarterback who needs development. Why not help him with having a rushing partner and lean on someone that we know is good and we've leaned on for the past 4 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, if you remove the one game in 2023, Jonathan Taylor I mean, he's averaging somewhere around like 18 carries per game in this season with Anthony Richardson. So, I mean, I look at it that the volume's going to be there. It's for me, the whole thing is just going to be health. And we saw how much a high ankle sprain can mess with running backs in the past. We saw it last year with Austin Eckler, where we kind of thought his career was done. That's the only thing that still worries me. But I think that if your team is on the brink, right? You think you're going to be making the playoffs, you think you're going to be competitive, but you're a good running back away. This is where I'd probably be trading away one of those guys, like a DeAndre Swift and a middle of the road or upper wide receiver, and go and get Jonathan Taylor here. Is that a
Yeah.
good trade?
Yeah, I do that for sure. I think you trade a high end wide receiver too for a guy like Jonathan Taylor. And again, I'm probably a little bit too low on him. I think now that he's back at practice and we expect him to see this, see him return. But again, there's just like kind of all these guys are so tight in this tier, and I've said that a few times now. We have to make content and stake our claims and argue about
We
why
don't.
we prefer this guy to this guy. But at the end of the day, like all of these guys from Aaron Jones to David Montgomery in this tier, you're feeling really good about all of those guys in your weekly lineup.
Yeah. And I'm willing to move up to where Dave is after that conversation.
All right, so that would put him at running back 11 for you.
Yeah.
All right. Last guy I just want to throw out here. We don't have to like do a whole thing on him, but I'm really intrigued to see what happens with Devon Achane now that Tua Tagovailoa is coming back, because that offense could totally take off. It could just fall flat, but whatever happens, Devon Achane was getting targeted a ton when Tua
Mhm.
was back in there. So he's a guy that we all have him across the board at running back 10, 10, and I guess now Jagger would be at running back 12. But um, it's I think he might have the highest ceiling out of any of these running backs that we have in this tier. Would you guys agree?
Fair. I think
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, yeah, we
That's
saw it
right.
early in the season what he can do, and it's just been terrible ever since. So, yeah, I mean, that's another one. We talk about like the what ifs. So, like so many of the guys that we're debating right now are because of injury situations, and if we know that Tua Tagovailoa is coming back and he'll play for the rest of the season, it's hard to think about Devon Achane as anything other than a top 5 rest of season running back.
And
It's
if you
funny.
got someone in your league that's like Tua Tagovailoa is just one hit away, and they got Devon Achane, just go give them DeAndre Hopkins or something. Like some of these guys that we've talked about that are kind of meh. Devon Achane seems gettable in my opinion because the experts know what's there, but I don't know if the your average guy in your league is actually paying attention.
So I bring all this up because in our listener league, I reached out to the manager that has Devon Achane, and I simply DM'd him, "Hey man, I'm interested in Devon Achane," and he goes, "You mean the only running back on my team with upside?" And I was just like, "Okay, so this isn't gonna happen. Got it. I'll move on. Just put out a quick feeler. You don't like it? Send it on back. We're good. Good." All right, let's go to the final two tiers. I'm going to list these all together. So at running back 8, we've got Jahmyr Gibbs. 7, Joe Mixon. 6, Kenneth Walker. 5, Brees Hall. 4, Bijan Robinson. 3, Kyron Williams. And then for the top tier, at 2, it's Derrick Henry. And at 1, it's Saquon Barkley, who Saquon, I think, throughout this, Saquon and Derrick Henry are really looking like two of the best picks made in fantasy football this year, guys, because you were getting them either on that 1-2 turn or at the very beginning of the second round. But what I want to do, we kind of know that those guys are already good. Like, there's not much to say. What I want to do is focus on this second tier with Gibbs, Mixon, Walker, Hall, Bijan, and Kyron. Which one of these running backs either deserves to already be in tier 1, or do you think will end up making the jump? Jagger, let's start with you.
Kyron is the easy one. I mean, he's the one who's knocking on the door. It is ugly, but Kyron is the offense for the Rams right now. He's the guy, and he's someone that I know that they're gonna funnel feed, and I'm eating a lot of crow for not having more Kyron on my roster.
Same.
The other not so hard one is Kenneth Walker. If you look at all of the peripherals, he just looks like a stud. And I know we talked about on the Dynasty show that there's arguments that he should be in the elite tier for Dynasty running backs at this point.
It's crazy the amount of volume that Kyron Williams is getting. It's not slowing down. And
Nope.
the touchdowns are insane. 18 touchdowns over his last
That's it.
13 games, and not a single game below 14 PPR points. And we're talking about a ton of these being up in the 20s. I ranked him as running back 3, and Jagger, you're right. Like, I'm eating crow too. We kind of expected that maybe this wouldn't last, or maybe his body wouldn't hold up to this kind of usage. But even with the Rams offense not looking good and not having their star players, Kyron is out here scoring, and he looks great, man. So congrats to him. I hope he gets paid the bag. NFL is cruel like that. It might not happen. But Dave, who's the guy for you that stands out?
I'm surprised that we haven't talked more about Joe Mixon. I mean, we've only seen him in 3 healthy games so far this year, and in those 3
That's why.
games, he's pulled a minimum 3 targets and 100 rushing yards in every single outing. I mean, on a per game basis, he's been the best guy in the league, or the best running back in the league. He's up there with Saquon and Henry when he's healthy. It's just he missed a couple of games and he got injured in another one, but we talked about it nonstop this offseason. I talked about Joe Mixon being one of my favorite targets, about how his skill set, his vision, and his patience and this wide zone blocking scheme was just a match made in heaven. There were concerns about Dameon Pierce, and he is just a bull in a china shop that isn't ready to run behind this offensive line. Joe Mixon, they are leaning on him heavily. He's having a renaissance in efficiency, looking like he did back in 2019, 2020. I've got him as RB5, and that almost feels too low. Now that he's healthy, the Texans look good. It's hard not to kind of put him in that same tier as Saquon and Derrick Henry, guys who are getting up there in age and on new teams, and we had concerns about them, but are just looking fantastic in their new environments.
I got another name to throw at you guys. And especially with Jamison Williams out, Jahmyr Gibbs is pacing for 1,300 rushing yards, 17 touchdowns, and 320 plus fantasy points on his second season. And he has 47.5% opportunity share. Do you think that for the back half of the season he could like, we actually got him like a two he's at the back end of the second tier, but he really could be a lot higher.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy in the offseason that I kind of said if there was someone who has the potential to finish as the RB1 overall because he fits that mold, it's Jahmyr Gibbs because of his receiving ability and how good that offense is. But it would probably take a David Montgomery injury for that to happen. And so, yeah, we're seeing time missed now with Jameson. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs has the ability to stay as efficient as he has been. And that offense is good enough where he's going to continue to get opportunities to score. I think as long as David Montgomery is there, it's going to be really hard for Jahmyr Gibbs to be a top 3 or 4 running back. I think he's
That's
probably
we finally
it's
saw it
close.
last week. Like
Yeah.
Montgomery got banged up, and then Jahmyr Gibbs goes for 32 points.
I think if David Montgomery misses time, I think it's very, very possible that Jahmyr Gibbs is the RB1 during that span. If it's 2 games, 3 games, whatever it is. But I hate having to rely on that or think that that's what has to happen to make him, the top tier running back. So I think that's why like we're comfortable putting him in the back end of this second tier. But if there's a guy talent wise that can do it, I mean, all of them can. But yeah,
Mhm.
Jahmyr Gibbs just has the insane profile to do it.
I'm on record saying it a few times this year. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is the best running back in football. His
He
versatility, speed, contact balance, like
Yeah.
he checks every single box. I think he's the best running back in football.
Well, that was nice. Look at that, guys. We got to finish on something nice and lighthearted and positive. Love it. What a good show. What a good show. Well, that's it for us. We did 36 running backs here. Maybe helps you make some trades out here. Don't go trade for Christian McCaffrey because the news isn't real and injuries are forever. As always, want to thank our special guest here, Jagger May, for joining us. And if you guys have not already done so, go and check out the Football Guys Dynasty Show with Jagger May and Jeff Bell. Make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel. And of course, I didn't say it here on this episode, but make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, Football Guys Fantasy Show. And for Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, please give us a second there where you go and leave a 5-star review. It helps Dave and I keep our jobs. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching and listening all the way through. We'll see you next time. Adios.